Let's move ahead with the first panel discussion of the day on the shift left evolution, adapting DevSecOps tools to meet security, compliance, and cost control. Please join me in welcoming our moderator, Mr. Jasprit Singh Nandre, Strategic Account Executive at Datadog. Can we have a big round of applause for Mr. Jasprit? Jasprit is a result-oriented professional with over 14 years of experience in individual and team management across diverse industries and geographies. He has a proven track record in quota-driven solution sales, territory expansion, and account management for both commercial and enterprise clients. Committed to helping customers solve their most pressing challenges, Jasprit leverages his strategic insights and collaborative approach to deliver tailored solutions that drive business success and foster long-term relationships. Please put your hands together. Following, I would like to call upon stage our panelist, Mr. Siva Adhikarla, Associate Director of Software Engineering at BigBasket.com, Mr. Prakher Srivastava, Vice President Engineering Head, Barclays Investment Bank, Mr. Anilkumar Varma, Chief Technology Officer at Multi-Commodity Exchange Clearing Corporation Limited, Mr. Vivek Parihar, Head of Engineering at Purple.com. Can we have a big round of applause for the moderator and all our fellow panelists? Mr. Vivek is on his way, so he will directly join us. I would request Mr. Jasprit to please begin the conversation.
Thank you so much. All right, thank you so much, organizers, for setting this up. I think you guys had a lot of energy this morning. Thank you for all those questions, really loved it, and it's a really insightful session. Just continuing more on shift left approach, right? We discussed a lot about it, and this one is a little bit deeper, going deeper into shift left and how it has evolved over the years, right? And you'll absolutely hear a lot of insights from the leaders out here. Go grab a cup of coffee because this one is going to be a little longer, but bear with us, and of course you'll see how exactly things have shaped up, right? I would really like to pass on the mic to sort of have the leaders introduce themselves, talk a little bit about their role and the company they belong to.
Hi, I'm Siva. I'm from Big Basket. I take care of the app, web, mobile development, as well as some of the release and DevOps activities at BB. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Prakher. I head the reference data technology team in Barclays Investment Bank in India, and I am kind of, along with my role as the lead for reference data, I also drive the DevOps across the markets area within Barclays.
Thanks, Jasprit, and thanks again, Skill. I am Anil Varma, and I head the technology in Multi-Commodity Exchange Clearing Corporation. So, as you know, we provide a trading platform, and as a clearing corporation, we do settlements to all our members and the clients. Thank you.
Great, thank you for sharing those introductions. So let's get right into it, right? So we spoke a lot about shift left approach, right? So let me start with you, Prakher. Walk us a little bit about what does shift left really means and how it has really impacted today's SDLCs in the current situation.
Sure. So let's start with the literal term shift left, right? It clearly means we are trying to shift towards the left side, right? So from a DevOps point of view, especially DevSecOps point of view, right? Traditionally, the security scans and the vulnerability resolutions were an afterthought. After the product was already developed, most probably it was already in staging. In many cases, the product is already in production. That's where we start the security scanning. However, when we started looking into the impact of doing the security scanning and the vulnerability resolution at the latest stages of the SDLC, we found out that it comes with a significant cost, right? And the cost can go significantly higher if we start looking into fintechs or some other data organizations where we might even come up with regulatory fines, right? Now, the whole idea about shift left into DevSecOps was to bring that later stages of security scanning into the initial SDLC cycle, probably closer to the development and the testing phases. And that's where we started bringing into the SaaS and DaaS tools, which can be integrated in the CI/CD pipelines, or even possibly into the developer IDEs as well. Right? And that has really helped us improve in terms of the faster delivery to production with the security scanning already completed. Cost savings, as I said, because if we have security vulnerabilities identified later in the stages, we have to do a lot of iteration to make sure that things are working fine before we finally go into production. Along with that, because we are trying to bring it into the earlier stages, previously, because there were different types of teams handling development, operations team handling the deployment and the build part, and the security was a completely separate team which was handling things in isolation. Because we are trying to bring them in the left side or shifting things left, all these three teams are getting to collaborate more with each other, and also kind of from a development point of view, the developers get to know more about security, which was kind of out of their scope in the past.
And I completely agree with that. And just to add one other point to that, see, I think it's also more about the mindset change, right? Because people earlier were, working in siloed operations, right? And if they get to sort of also shift their mindset to the left and also think about how their code should be, bug-free right at the start itself, right? That makes a lot more impact, to the entire SDLC, cycle, right? So yeah, completely agree there, Prakher. Thank you for that. Let me get to the next question. I'll ask this one to you, Siva, right? See, organizations are effectively integrating security early in the development process, right? And how can we ensure that there is no, slowing down of innovation or productivity into this entire situation? What's your feedback on that?
Yeah, as Prakher mentioned, right? It has become an afterthought, since we started working on the application development. It has been our mindset. So shift left, as you rightly said, is a change of mindset for not just developers, but for the organizations as well. So when we try to do this DevSecOps, the security being part of the whole Dev and Ops, so there are certain things that we need to take care of so that this becomes effective for teams as well as for organizations. I would try to put them into some points and see, if I can put my point across. Probably the first one that I would say is we should understand that it's a shared responsibility. Right, so whether it is developers, whether it is the security teams, whether it is ops teams, whether it is QA teams, it's a shared responsibility among every one of us to make sure that security becomes part of development cycle, which means when the product managers or your business teams talk about a particular feature, then asking the right questions about security. When it is a bigger problem that we are trying to solve for the customers. So what kind of unnecessary things that we may do to cause problems for customers. So making it a shared responsibility among people, and then because it's a shared responsibility, the next immediate thing that people have to do is to collaborate. Make sure that they are coming together, they are actually trying to solve the problem for customers in the most secured manner possible. So once you make it as shared responsibility and when you collaborate and bring the solutions, then the next important thing is to prioritize. So not everything is needed as most secured. You need to prioritize. For example, if you are building something as an internal microservice versus a customer-facing microservice. For example, if your app is talking to a middleware, then your backend microservice can be looked at from security perspective with lot of emphasis on security may not be needed because it is on VPC and things like that. I mean, I'm not saying that backends microservices don't need security and all, but which is the most important thing to start with, etc. So prioritize them, measure the impact of the security and the the data that you collect and how you are storing, etc., and then improvise as you make progress. It's an iterative process. Since it's a mindset change, it comes with time, and hence iterate over it and make things better for everyone.
I think I completely agree with you, and of course the collaboration is something which is extremely important, because that also leads to how teams engage with each other, right? And I think that also brings me to my next question. We speak about shift left and how the collaboration has impacted, right? So Prakhar, why don't you sort of give us some insights on how the collaboration between development, security, and operations team can overcome silos, right? And it will be great to also, I think audience here would love to hear some examples from your own industry and your own company as well, and how you have technically solved these challenges. That would be a great understanding for everybody, I believe.
Sure. Definitely collaboration between development team, the operations team, and the security team is key to shifting left on the DevSecOps part, right? In the past, as I said earlier, right, because the security was an afterthought and it was a completely separate team which was doing the security scannings and sharing the results with the development team. And most of the time, the security team used to even share the approach to fix the vulnerabilities, right? So it was not, so development teams were mainly focused on doing what they were asked to do, right, post the scans were done. Now, when we start shifting left, right, a lot of onus comes on very close collaboration between the dev and the security team. Because the security team has to make sure that the developers understand what kind of different vulnerabilities they have to focus on while writing their code itself, right? And that's where the knowledge transfer or the knowledge sharing between them or the collaboration works well. Plus, we also need to make sure that when the developers are actually writing their code, right, they are closely working along with the security team to continuously review their code, monitor their code, look into the observability part from a scanning point of view, and plus collaborate with the operations team so that this can be an iterative process. Right. Now, this is definitely challenging because developers many times are reluctant to really go into that security part. They are like very happy writing their own code and not really focus on the security aspect, because traditionally they have been like, okay, this is some other team's job, why should I be really focusing on that? But that's where when we start collaborating more, the teams coordinate with each other, talk to each other, right? They learn from each other, and that kind of brings that culture where everyone starts to kind of, that the line between the dev and the security teams starts blurring. However, there are some kind of other aspects which we have to look into as well. For example, when we try to do the shift left on this thing, right, and a lot of kind of responsibility starts coming on the developers, sometimes the security team, right, they might start feeling that, okay, we are being left out, or slowly and steadily our role is getting kind of, what do you call that? Yeah, it's going to go away, right? Yeah. So we have to build that collaboration to make sure that they both understand their roles, right? And we also bring that kind of understanding within the team that it's not really cutting down on roles, or it's not really taking away the responsibility of security and giving it to the development team. It's a collaborative effort. It's a collaborative effort, and they both will continue to contribute to the build part and ensure that the application, when it goes to the production, is secure.
Perfect. Prakher, do you mind giving some examples of how you solved this in Barclays?
I can give you very good examples, right? So, in the past, right, when developers used to build the code, send it to, for example, we used to use Veracode, right? So Veracode, how it works is, you build your application, you share the assemblies, and the Veracode team will do the scanning and share the results with you. They will tell you what are the vulnerabilities, how to look into them, and most of the time, they will also give you like approaches to solve the problems. Now, when it was working that way, the teams were like, okay, competing with each other many times, I would say, very clearly. The developers, okay, used to be kind of going back and forth, telling, okay, this doesn't seem to be like a vulnerability. Many times we will try to discard those vulnerabilities and compete with each other. But when we started collaborating, right, and started going into a phase where the developers got to know that it's their responsibility as well, right, we started having regular sessions with the development team and the security team. We had kind of knowledge sharing, because even the security, right, they need to understand the code that has been written. Because otherwise what happens is, if the security team goes straight away with the fixed set of rules, right? Because the security scans come up with very like strict scanning rules, and many times vulnerabilities which are not really vulnerabilities are, we call them false positives, right? The false positives, and trying to do away with those false positives is very difficult. But when they both started collaborating with each other and understanding each other, like it became like, okay, the security team would start understanding the developer's code, and the developers will start understanding the security scanning rules and why certain things have been identified as vulnerability, even though it doesn't look like a vulnerability. Right? When they started working together on a day-to-day basis, definitely that that kind of competition between them went away, and they started behaving like a single team. And we also made sure that we have brought those people together. Even the roles were interchanged. What we did is we started interchanging roles. Some of the developers were given the responsibility of working directly with the security team and understanding their part. So that has definitely helped, and especially with the kind of these new AI-driven AI tools coming into picture, right? When the developers are writing their code, they are able to really identify. So they are really able to identify the vulnerabilities firsthand. They kind of get to understand more about the security part, and that definitely has kind of helped change the perspective and the entire kind of thought process in the team.
Perfect. So I think it's a cultural change, right? That has actually led to sort of this entire change between how people are thinking about what the other person is doing, right? So perfect.
Also, one thing that I wanted to add on to what you were saying, right? So when there is a competition between devs and security teams, especially when the code scan happens, when they raise Jiras to resolve, etc. One typical thing that developers say is that it has been there since long time. So why is a problem now, right? So lot of times these discussions are very tricky. But if it is a security issue, till date it was not identified. Great, you should be very, very lucky that you did not get an issue till so far, but you have to fix it right now. So there is no other go.
Everyone likes to wipe their hands off, right? So this is not my problem. This is somebody else's problem. So
yeah, that's a typical kind of nature. Even within the dev and the QA, we used to have these kind of problems in the past, right? Things have slowly changed with the QA becoming more like a developer. Right? Things have changed.
Absolutely. I think that's not just with corporates. I think that's the problem everywhere. Like nobody wants to own up to their problems, right? So that's perfectly great. Anil, why don't you share some of your feedback and how you have solved this problem in your organization?
So just to start with, as we were discussing, okay, first thing, I feel like just a shift left doesn't simply mean that putting a security in the DevSecOps line very beginning. Okay.
For the IPO is having an audit, right? Getting the audit done. Well, shift left with the authority is one of the very important forte, because how do you make sure that what are the deliveries that you are going happening in your organization, right? It should not stop, because as a startup you want to definitely always on a top, like where you keep delivering a lot more of things that your business require to get it done, right? So currently we adopted like 3 approach for that. So whenever we are going to ship anything, right, into the market for our consumers, so everything has been, all these observability is a part of my CI/CD pipeline, right? Be it your getting the API vulnerabilities as well as your, to understand a misconfiguration, to understand the anomalies with respect to the patterns of the traffic which is coming. It's come way ahead whenever it goes to the market or into the production itself, right? So with this, what is happening, whenever a code being pushed even to the staging environment, right? From there, the whole journey started with the observability. And we keep observing the pattern with respect to what is happening. Is it wrong with the security? Or it is already following all the OWASP practice or not, right? So everything is been auto in that environment. So what is happening with this? So my security is not coming back to us after the release happen, or they're not stopping my releases, right? Everything going in tandem. And the time to market also get reduced, as well as the lot more all these vulnerabilities which is coming from the outside of the market or bug bounty program, it reduced significantly.
I think that's a very interesting point, because having that seamless visibility across your DevOps practices, your observability, and your security makes all that impact, right? Because you need to take decisions quickly, right? And at that situation, if you have all the metrics in your hand right at the same platform, maybe in the same platform, that helps you, sort of take the decisions.
So let me just give you an example. Like, so because observability become one of the very important forte for us, and we have been investing a lot. And we also integrated our observability with our the security expected. We just were two tools which is integrated all together. So there is a recent attack of OTPs, which happened with all the major companies within Mumbai, right? Even the BFSI, including us, Nike, and everybody, right? So we get to know from this our observability system, right? It helps us to understand there is an abnormal behavior with respect to the API itself, because it is not in my frame graph. Because to reach to this particular API or to the service, it should follow the pattern. Currently, it is not following the pattern. It gives us a in way advanced. So there is some abnormal pattern that we are seeing in your this particular service. Go back and check. The moment we went back, we started looking for the WAF, we saw it's an actual DDoS attack. And we saved approximately 20-25 lakhs rupees there. Because where my subsequent teams or the partners who are working in different companies, they have huge losses. So that's a very important aspect.
That's a very interesting example. Thanks for that, Vivek. So I think we're just about 3 minutes to the session, right? Probably, one last question, and if you could quickly, summarize for us, Siva. Give us a little bit of understanding on what the best practices are because of the changing infrastructure and changing microservices architecture. What best practices should each of us should keep in mind while following this approach?
Yeah. So cloud and microservices being our bread and butter, right? Few things that I can say is that we should utilize the managed services effectively. For example, whether it is AWS or GCP, you have key managers. So your encryption keys can stay there. And, you have one less thing to worry about. Right? So that's one thing that I would say. Then other thing that I would say is that, your encrypted S3 buckets, you're rotating your IAM policies if you are an AWS shop, right? So these things are very, very crucial, important. So first thing is, do we understand that the return on investment on security aspects? The most important return on the investment that we make on security is trust, earning the trust. Why do we do this? The primary reason is that I'm compliant, I'm having this security certification done, etc., is to earn the trust of the customer. And hence, we need to make sure that all these S3 buckets, being them in private zone and then encrypting them and enforcing the rotation of IAM keys, etc., is important. And when it comes to microservices, use the, for example, give the least privileges to microservices. What is needed for that microservice to do, no less, no more. So just because you have your order microservice, which is the most important thing in your e-commerce world, it doesn't mean that it can access anything in your system. Because once your order microservice is compromised for whatever reason, then your entire system is gone for a toss. So what is needed for that microservice, only do that. So these are some of the things that I can think of.
Perfect. I think let's give a great round of applause for our panelists here for sharing their insights. Thank you so much. We still have some time for a couple of questions in case anybody of you would like to ask any question to our panelists. Come on. You asked a lot of questions in the initial session, right? Thank you. Can somebody give a mic to them?
Hello. So sometimes security becomes very irritating for developers. Like security stops us to proceed further. Let's say merging code or keeping credentials in local for our development purpose. So what is the smooth process to implement security for developers?
Let me take that up. I can definitely correlate to it very well. So 6 months back, then we started doing all this security first approach, right? And That's where we figured out, okay, it's a huge amount of a burden to the developer, right? So what we came up with, like how we can definitely rationalize this approach while you're pushing anything over the to your local branches versus your the feature branch, right? So all the security experts should come kick in a CI/CD pipeline itself, right? With this, what happens? It always stops the developer to really push this code with so-and-so vulnerabilities, and it also helps them to understand how they can resolve it, right? One of the very important aspects is if you keep telling, "Bhai, teri galti hai ye," so it's a problem for them because everybody very reluctant to accept, okay, it's my mistake, right? The moment you say there is a problem, there is a way to solve this problem, and the moment you do this, you're good to go. With this approach, we have been using all my tools in such a way, instead of just telling everybody this is a mistake they did, we also helping out how they can resolve it, right? So the moment they got any of these vulnerabilities, be it OWASP scam, be it what are the keys that you are talking about, and we also mandate whenever you require any service keys or anything, right? Instead of giving the keys, we also evaluate to start using a service accounts, which we can also auto-rotate in my backend, right? So it's a smooth process after that. The moment somebody push, they got all these problem, and they also got how they can resolve this problem, right? And also in some cases, what is happening, because we have been leveraging a lot more AI related tools, it also helping out with one click they can solve this, because that's what the LLM also helping them to really resolve this in their development environment itself.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you so much, Vivek, for taking that. Does anybody have one final question, or we can? I don't think so. We have. All right, great. Thank you so much for being a lovely audience and listening to us patiently. Our leaders are here through the day. I'm sure you guys can meet them, network with them, etc. And thank you to the organizers for setting this up. It has been a great session. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Jasprit, for the wonderful moderating, and thank you to all our panelists for your insights. I would like to call upon stage Mr. Mukesh Jain, CTO at Capgemini, to do the honors. Can we have a big round of applause? To our moderator, Mr. Jasprit. Please put your hands together.